Patterns, patterns, patterns. Patterns are so important in the process because without a pattern, you can't make a sample. A pattern is literally a flat piece of paper that is a cutout of all the parts of what your garment is eventually going to look like. It's the two-dimensional equation of what your three-dimensional garment will ultimately look like. So how does that happen? On certain occasions, depending on where we're actually going to be building the production, we might work with a pattern maker locally to get you up and running. Pattern makers specialize in various sectors of apparel. And not all pattern makers are created equal, but many pattern makers that are great can actually straddle quite a few product classifications. And they're the engineers. They're actually starting the two-dimensional flow of traffic. What happens? We either have an original garment that inspired you, that we would like to emulate maybe how the shoulder is draping, or you like how the collar is standing, or you like the body length and the sleeve opening. The pattern maker will actually interpret and engineer what your idea is and put it onto paper. It might start with something called a muslin. A muslin is actually a little mock sample, and he'll drape it or she'll drape it on a dress form to get your approval. And they'll show a mock-up and say, is this the right sleeve? Is this the detail you're talking about? We say yes or no. And then we give them permission to proceed into an actual finished pattern. A pattern is created once we've been given the authorization to move into next steps. What happens? Once we are able to sign off on the mock-up or the muslin or the sleeve drape, we'll then give the thumbs up and pull the trigger to the pattern maker to finish off the pattern. They will then come back to us with a nice little envelope with multiple parts of paper cutouts that will actually create your first proto. Sometimes it's a quick and painless process, and sometimes it's a long and tedious process depending on the garment you're looking to put in. Let's say, for example, you'd love to do a men's constructed dress coat. There's a lot of components in the dress coat, a lot of build. There are a lot of linings and finishes and fusibles and all of the components that go into actually building the structure so that it will stand up a certain way, or it will lay down a certain way, or it will drape a certain way, or it will close a certain way. The pattern maker actually needs to really understand what fabric we're going to be using, because as part of his build, he needs to understand drape, which is why the previous process of fabric adoption is so critical. If we're working domestically and we're developing the patterns in New York, pattern costs range anywhere from $100 up to over $1,000 depending on the garment. If it's a highly intricate ball gown or constructed blazer, it can be north of $1,500 to $2,000. But for a simple women's wear blouse, I would say around $125 is a fair place to rest your head. Now, if we're developing the programs overseas, it's interesting. The garment factories over there don't typically charge for pattern development, as they see that as the cost of doing business. So sometimes it's a little bit more favorable to be working on an import strategy because a lot of those costs are covered in your development by the factory, and that's just inherent in the industry. So this is one of those places where we're going to have to decide from the onset where you want to build your program. But that will all be contingent on your budget directives and your final distribution plan.